a one game matchup against Maine this Friday, then following it up with Tuesday game versus BU, and then Northeastern and Vermont to close the season. But focusing on Maine this week, just want to get your thoughts heading into that matchup.
Yeah, well, it was nice to have a weekend off. I will say that. Just kind of come up for air. And I think our guys used it accordingly and got some proper rest. We're looking forward to this final 5 game stretch we have here to close out the season. And they're all important games for us, that's for sure. And starting with Maine on Friday night. And they're a team that, I mean, Boya's up for the Richter Award. He's had an outstanding year in net. I think they're very good on defense with Brazil, and Jurasevich has been a good transfer for them on defense. They're pretty mobile, and they don't give up a lot of chances, that's for sure, defensively. And then up front, they're really good. They're deep, four lines deep. I don't know if Makar and Scott have obviously had great years for them, but I think when you go down to Mitten and Russell and Breen could be back for them this week. They're really, really deep up front as well. So they're a team without a lot of holes, and there's a reason why they're tied with BC at the top of the standings.
Awesome. All right, we'll open up for questions. Who wants to start us off? Wow, no questions,
Great
guys.
press
Come on.
conference, guys. Appreciate it.
I'll start. Coach, how are you?
Good, Eric. How are you?
Appreciate a couple of minutes. I guess I was just wondering, you talked a little bit about it on your last media availability, that not just it was a lot of hockey in a row before this break, but it was a lot of intense hockey in a row. And, you could make, not necessarily that you guys were doing this in the room, but you can make an argument that every series and every game was the most important game in terms of, the goals at the end of the year. So just, how much was this break from the mental standpoint as big a deal as it was maybe from just the, physical standpoint of, having a little time away from the ice in terms of games?
Yeah, well, time will tell, but I know personally speaking, for me, it was a great break. When you're constantly trying to rev it up every weekend, and as you mentioned, uh, there are no nights off in this league, and even we played Alaska, who was 57th or 58th. That was more nerve-wracking game for me than playing New Hampshire or Lowell or like a Hockey East game, because you just start thinking, God, we cannot let this game ruin our chances for a national tournament. So there's, to answer your question, it was a great mental break for me just to be able to take the weekend off and not have to worry about gearing it up on a Friday and Saturday night. And I would imagine that would be the same for our players.
Hmm. What did you, I was reading a little bit of an article that Dan wrote about how you weren't afraid to talk about that notion of that Alaska game and how much it means from a pairwise
No,
perspective.
no.
Is that something that you've kind of been, it's easy to say one game at a time, but is that something you've been doing with the group this whole year in terms of, having the conversations about this is our goal in terms of the national tournament and this is what these games can do, positive or negative?
Yeah. So since we've come back from break, I post the pairwise every week, and I put down and tell the kids, like, this is our goal. We want to get to the national tournament. I'm not going to pretend that we're close, or I don't want to talk about it, or I don't want to jinx it. Like, that's garbage to me. Like, this is our goal. This is what we want. And if you want to manifest it, you talk about it, and you uh, let everybody know that this game could decide whether we get to the national tournament or not. So I think it's healthy, as opposed to, as I said, I don't believe in jinxes. I don't believe in curses. It's you got to talk about it, and so everybody knows what the expectations are and what the goals are.
I'll ask more on the back end, but I'll let everybody else get in.
Randy, we'll jump over to you.
Thanks. Good morning, Kev. How you doing today?
I'm great, Randy. You?
I'm well, thank you. Little off subject, but with the weekend off, I always find it, fun when a college hockey team, perhaps made up of Americans and Canadians on the roster, have a chance to enjoy international hockey playing
Yeah.
Saturday nights. The boys get together and watch. And what's kind of the talk around the team after Saturday's game?
They were certainly watching. I would imagine they got together. I don't ask those questions though, Randy, about where they watched or what they did, but I'm pretty confident that they all watched it.
And just a question about Joey. You spoke about this after last game. You know, obviously the incredible season he's having, and you had mentioned that although he's like a little smaller in stature, pound for pound, he's about one of the strongest guys you have in the weight room. Can you speak maybe a little bit more about the underrated strength, you know, the physical strength of Joey, and like what puts the package together?
Yeah, there are some guys, you go in the weight room and it's funny. Jerry York used to call them all bus guys. They get off the bus and you're like, whoa, this guy's a player. But then there's guys like Joey who doesn't look that strong, but he is really hockey strong. He's strong in the weight room for his size. Pound for pound, he's one of the strongest kids on our team, but he's really hockey strong. Jake Richard is too. Like they're just heavy and strong on pucks. They don't get knocked off pucks very easily. So that's and that doesn't necessarily equate with how much you bench press or how much you squat. There's just kind of a skill of being hockey strong, and he has that.
Thank you.
Jim, we'll jump over to you.
Morning, Cav. Great to see you. It's been
Good
a while.
to see you, Jim. Yeah.
I apologize to everybody who's probably a regular, but I'm going to ask some bigger picture questions that just to re-familiarize myself. But can you maybe, go through the arch of this season and, have there been low points? I mean, obviously the Merrimack weekend maybe stands out in, any adversity you've had, kind of how you feel like your team has handled it.
I think we've had a lot, but I think every team does. I've never coached a season where there hasn't been a little adversity. I can think of many teams, even that 2012 team that I coached was part of that staff at BC, and I think we won 19 straight to end the season. But up until that point, we were 500. Like we were struggling. We played 3 goaltenders. So as far as this season, there's been games, Jim, where both starting goalies have been sick, and Tommy Heaney's come in and had to do a great job for us. You have injuries, you have tough losses, you have a weekend like Merrimack. But my thought process, and I tell the kids this all the time, it's not why is this happening to us? Why is this happening for us? And I think when you look at it that way, you stop being the victim and you just go out and give it your best. And I think that is how we try to approach anything that happens, throughout the season.
Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Eric, you want to jump back in?
Yeah, Coach, I know this is old news for most of the people on this call, but just because we're Nesson Friday and I don't know quite how many games there's been on Nesson in the new building. Certainly a few, but can you just speak to now, whatever we are, 2 years, year and a half in, just, now that it's not the newness, but just that it's the everyday
Yeah.
of it, what the building adds and what it, kind of has brought to the program?
Yeah, well, one, it's allowed our student sections full every game. So it's allowed our students to come and watch our team play, which was a lot more difficult for them, Eric, when you're 25 minutes away and you have to get on a bus as opposed to walking 5 minutes from your dorm to the rink. So I think first and foremost, it's allowed our student body to come support our team on a more consistent basis. And it's given our players a resource to develop to the very best of their potential. They don't want for anything in this building. They have everything they need to become, the best hockey player that they can be. And those are the two things I think that it's really brought to our team. We're no longer having to, walk outside on a day like today, 300 yards to the weight room, like that type of stuff. It's right here. Everything's right here. If you want to shoot pucks, there's a shooting room. If you want to take an ice bath, when I first got here, we were filling up Rubbermaid containers with the Zamboni snow and water if a kid wanted an ice bath. Honest to God, like that's what happened over at the Freitas. So the fact that they have all those amenities now, I think, is great for our players.
Mm-hmm. And then the last one for me, and obviously it's a total team effort. It's not just one guy, but are there a couple of guys that maybe you feel like, you're not asked about enough or kind of are under the radar from the Muldownies or the, Tattle or whoever that you feel like have had such a crucial impact, especially on this last stretch that you've gone on since the start of the year that we can try to make sure we highlight?
Yeah, I've said all along, I think Hudson Shandor, I think that the major turning point for our season was last May when Hudson Shandor and John Spetz decided to come back for fifth years. I think that they provide instant leadership, but along those lines, I think Tabor Heaslip's a kid that's underrated on our team. He's an outstanding penalty killer. He plays a regular shift. If we're protecting a lead, he's a guy that's out there. He wins big faceoffs for us, and he brings a ton of energy to our team. He's a guy, I would say, that's probably a little underrated on our team.
Well, thanks so much, Coach.
Adam, we'll jump over to you.
You'd mentioned before the Alaska game that without John Spetz that you were deciding between Jack Pascucci and you ended up going with Owen Simpson. So what did he deliver in that game, getting a chance?
I thought he played pretty solid. I thought he gave us some good minutes. I don't know what he played, maybe 10 to 15 minutes in that game. And when he was out there, he gave us, quality minutes. So I thought he did a nice job.
And then the obvious follow-up is, where is John Spetz's health at this point?
I think we'll know more after today. He's practiced on Monday and Tuesday. He has not had contact yet. So I think today is the first day we're going to see how he responds to contact. And if that goes well, then we'd expect him to be in the lineup on Friday night.
Thanks, Coach.
Dan, we'll jump over to you.
Little bit of a little bit of a weird week schedule wise with the Friday, Tuesday. What's your schedule look like in terms of trying to practice and just navigate a weirdness between those two games?
Yeah, I kind of like it, actually. I think I almost prefer that than playing back-to-back games Friday, Saturday. So Saturday would be a day where I got to look at it. We might have to take the day off according to our calendar. But if not, it would probably just be a lift or workout or yoga type session on Saturday. Then have two good practices before we play, BU. The guys love to play games, so I think if you asked any of them, they'd rather play Friday, Tuesday than Friday, Saturday and have to practice all week and then wait to play again. So I think it's great.
I don't know if you saw Nate Lehman just came up with the idea of there's so many good teams in the league and all the games are kind of stacked up against each other on Friday, Saturday, and he suggested maybe spacing them out by having more during the week. Just do you like midweek games, or would you prefer them to not all be 7 o'clock on a Friday night?
You'd have to check this, but I think probably back when I was in college, I think Hockey East played Friday and Tuesdays. I think they played Jim might know. I don't know. I think he played every Friday and Tuesday. And because our league is a bus league, it gets a little challenging with Vermont and Maine, but the rest of us, it's not that hard. It's doable in our league. And I would probably, there is something to be said about having a routine where Monday is this and Tuesday is that and Wednesday's power play or whatever it is and Thursday, and then you play Friday, Saturday, take Sunday off. There is something to be said about that. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think that Nate and I have both talked. I think the league should have a pick a night and say this is Hockey East night. Like the Big East used to have Big Monday. I think that Wednesday or whatever, the league should mandate that there's going to be the Hockey East game of the week, and why not? And take advantage of it. I hope that in the playoffs, I think that the 4-5 game should be Friday night. I think we should maximize our viewers. When the quarterfinal games, the 4-5 guys know they're playing each other, in advance. They're not playing on that Wednesday night. Let's play Friday night. Play that game Friday night, and then you can play the other 3 games Saturday at whatever 2, 5, and 8 or whatever. So we're maximizing our viewership. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but
Plenty acceptable.
Jim, we'll jump over to you.
Yeah, I think somebody's trying to figure out what the equivalent of Tuesday night Maction is in Hockey East now.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly.
I know Randy asked a little bit about Muldowney, but what have you seen just, him as on the ice that has changed or maybe improved the most this season? Is there just something about a confidence level for him right now?
Jim, it's funny. At the end of last year, I thought he was starting to come. I've talked about this a little bit. Both he and Ryan Tattle at the end of last year were playing great hockey for us. And the guys that have kind of watched our games religiously, he wasn't scoring, but he was getting a lot of chances. And now I've seen it. Now there's so much confidence that when he shoots the puck, he thinks it's going in. And, as a hockey player, when you start feeling that way, it's contagious. Like you really believe every shot you're taking is going in. And I think that's kind of how he's playing right now. But he's still playing a great 200-foot hockey game. Yesterday we were focusing on a lot of defensive type drills, and he was maybe our best player defensively yesterday.
You mentioned the comfort level, and once you get that shot and it starts going in, but have you seen him, working extra on his shot, or have you just seen anything change from just shooting?
No, he spends a lot of time at the rink working on his game, as do most of our guys. We're really fortunate that way to have a group of guys that want to get better and want to continue to improve. So and a lot of that has to do with your leadership, because when you see your leaders coming down, there's open ice every morning basically from 7:30 to 10, and you got to get out of bed and come down here, and I don't let the kids go on in sweats, so you got to put all your gear on, and if you're going to go out and work on your game. But the majority, when your leaders are doing it, then it just trickles down.
And just totally separate, want to follow up the earlier question about the pairwise, because I haven't heard a lot of coaches admit that they even talk about the pairwise with their players. So I think it's kind of refreshing. But has the mood changed as you've watched the team bounce around the pairwise? Has the locker room mood changed?
I don't think so. As I said, there's never going to be an elephant in the room. I'm going to address everything, and we're going to talk about it, because I just think if you want something, then you have to express it. You can't just hope it happens. I don't believe that. So you got to make it happen, and that's why we talk about it. Now, I don't talk about, okay, we got to do this to become a top 4 seed, or we got to do this to become a 3 seed. No, we want to just get into the tournament, and whatever it takes to get into the tournament, that's what we want to do.
Thanks, Kev.
Yeah. I don't follow your bracketology, Jim, but I do follow the top 12 in the pairwise.
I bet you do.
Andrew, we'll end it with you.
Just circling back to the conversation earlier about possibly the league spreading out the schedule so it's not just Friday, Saturday. One counter argument that was raised was, having the attendance. Like that would be great, obviously, for streaming and for people watching, on
Yeah.
ESPN Plus. But is that a concern that if you're playing midweek games, that maybe the atmosphere in the arenas wouldn't be as good?
I don't think that's a concern at UConn. It might be at other schools, but Andrew, there's basketball games every night and the buildings are packed. I think if you have a great, Maine is not going to have any problem selling out their building on a Tuesday, Wednesday. It could be Easter Sunday. They're going to sell that building out. It's they have no problem selling. Like there's certain arenas, I believe that it's not going to make an issue. It's not going to be an issue. And I know it wouldn't be. Like, we had a pretty full building Wednesday, and the women's basketball team was playing an hour and a half after us. So, and then last week we played. What game was it? Oh, we played UMass at 4 p.m. on a Friday and had a full building because basketball was playing at 7:30. So when you have a great fan base, it doesn't matter. They're going to come whenever you want, and that's why. I'm a big proponent of Saturday afternoon games. I think our Saturday afternoon games, attendance is fantastic. I think that's another window that we need to exploit. I don't know why we're playing a lot of times at 7 o'clock on a Saturday. It's like then you're taking all the families out of it pretty much, that want to bring their kids to a game. It's hard for kids under 10 to stay up till 11 o'clock at night, At least it was for my kids.
It's hard for me sometimes, Kev.
I know. I hear you. Like I agree, especially when you go into Maine. I don't know why we're not playing that game at 4 or 5 o'clock. Because when you're getting home at 3 in the morning, that's not fun. And for them too. When we play them on a weekend, I try to play the game at 4, so they're not getting home at 3 in the morning.